evening, friends and neighbors. Or shall I say this afternoon?
Welcome back to the Denver Broncos franchise on Madden 22. I'm your host, longtime listener. Be sure to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and comment below. I know by the time you see this, it will be a little bit outdated, I suppose, but just want to take a moment to, I guess, honor the legacy of John Madden, who passed away kind of unexpectedly on Tuesday the 28th. So kind of sad news there. He was 85 years old, and I'm a Raiders fan myself. So that one kind of hurt a little bit. Now, honestly, I don't remember him as a coach. I'm not old enough, but I do absolutely remember watching him as a commentator. And toward the end of his career as a commentator, frankly, it got kind of ridiculous how we just called him Captain Obvious, you know. And I think it's Frank Caliendo does a really good Madden impression, and he kind of in his comedy bits emphasizes some of that Captain Obvious kind of statements that Madden would make. But anyway, sad news, and obviously a guy that had a huge impact on the game. Now, in this episode, we've got a bye in week 8 and then a home game against the Seahawks that we will be simulating because we've won a couple of games in a row. I am actually leaning towards this episode not having any game footage action, and instead what I hope to do is get through those 2 weeks and do some stuff as far as looking at some players that we want to scout, because we've got to do this in this episode. And then also, we'll be 8 games in, and that's probably a good point to take a look at our stats as well as maybe some league rankings to just kind of see where we stack up. Now, we have a relatively early bye where teams will have buys, I think, as late as week 12 in the season, maybe even deeper into the season. So the team rankings as far as total yards or whatever will be a little bit influenced by that, but it's not a huge deal. Anyway, let's kind of get in here. We're 5-2 now on the season, and we're tied with the Chiefs for first. The Chargers and Raiders are having a rough go of it so far this year, especially the Raiders. But let's look at the mock draft and see where they've got us picking for now and who. So they have us taking Dylan Sweat, a tight end who can't run block, but he's got phenomenal athleticism. Spectacular catch is really good. This could be a guy that could turn into a stud. But we've got Noah Fant and Albert O. I don't want to waste a first-round pick on a tight end when we just locked one up for 6 years who's going to be our number 1 tight end for a while. So who did they have us taking in this one? The corner, Lionel Holcomb. Let's look at him real quick and just see. B for press, C for zone coverage. Those are okay. His speed is okay. Strength is okay. His quickness looks like it's pretty darn good. He can't jump. How tall is he? He's 6 foot, so that's acceptable. He can hit hard, but he's an injury liability. I'm not drafting you if you can't stay healthy, period. So that's done. We will need to go in to do the scouting focus. And see, just because I went in to look at the mock draft, now I can't go in and do that national scouting thing. That is how dumb that dynamic is. So here's what we're going to do. While we're here, I'm going to go ahead and go look at the prospects, and basically what we want to try and do here is pick the 3 guys that we are most likely to try and draft. And so what I actually want to do is go and look at the mock draft, because I want guys who are slated to go late in the first round. So we've got a guard, a tackle, some strong safeties. Those safeties have a high likelihood of being on my list because we need one with Kareem Jackson getting old. So, and they're slated to go late in the first round in both mock drafts, which is good. Defensive end, wide receiver, running back. So it's looking like strong safety is gonna be a position that we're gonna try and address. And like realistically, I need a right tackle as well. But I would be okay picking one up in free agency if we can't get one that's any good. So let's look at these guys and see if either of them kind of stand out. B, hit power. And then elite strength, jumping, and acceleration. And then great agility and change of direction. Speed as just decent or solid is a little bit of a concern. But it's not as big of a deal at safety as it is at like corner. He's got B for an injury rating, which is cool. Play recognition and pursuit are both C, which is not necessarily ideal. I'd like to see better play recognition, because that basically tells me that he's not going to be like fantastic in the run stopping, at least not right out of the gates. So that's a maybe. Let's look at Sheldon Nash and see if we like him better. B for tackling, C for zone coverage. Great. He's got elite strength and acceleration. Again, just decent or solid speed, and then good on the other three. So the physicals aren't quite as good as the other guy. But he's got A, awareness. He can tackle. He's decent in coverage. He's not going to be an injury issue. So I think this guy is the better of the two, at least as far as like right off the bat. So Sheldon Nash is going to be the guy that we will need to look at for strong safeties. Now, the other position I want to look at is right tackle. Actually, let me do this real quick. Yeah. So let's look at right tackle. Now, we're not going to get this Mac Cheatham guy. We're probably not even going to get Edward Boston. But let's look at him just in case. He's decent in run blocking. Those are acceptable, I guess, but I would like to see strength be higher if you're an offensive lineman. And I don't think that that's a guy that we would try and like move up in the draft to get. So that's not ideal. Let's look a little bit farther down and see if we can find a steal. That's not the guy. If you got all D's right there, forget it. What we're basically looking for is a guy, yeah, see, there's just nothing down here. This is a third or fourth rounder. Can't run block. Again, just good strength. If he had like crazy good physicals, maybe I would consider him. Let's go look at left tackle and see if there's anything there. Okay, so there are some options here. Now, I think we need to be looking down around these three, hoping that we're picking late in the first round and can get somebody that's still there and without having to trade to move up or whatever. So he's got C for run blocking. Strength is an issue. The rest of that stuff is really good. And that stuff is actually okay. So that's a maybe, but that strength being just decent to solid concerns me. So I don't know about that. How about Chris Banks? He's moving up the draft board. Let's see why. B, impact block, C, pass block. He's got elite strength and good acceleration and agility. Speed's okay. I don't really care too much about that. Change of direction is okay. B, pass block power. D for, so his pass blocking is already okay. His run blocking is a concern where we only see the run blocking power and it's a D. But with that strength and acceleration and agility, he could end up being pretty good. So let's actually throw Chris Banks down on the list of guys to look for. So there's Banks at left tackle, and then who was it? Nash at strong safety? Yeah. The only other position we're going to look at is going to be middle linebacker. There's a bunch of them, and we kind of want to get one anyway. But let's again look sort of late in the first round. How about Will McPherson out of Florida? B tackling. He's 23 years old. He's got very, very, very good physicals. The only one that's kind of, iffy is jumping, and I don't care a ton about that. So that tells me there's a good chance he is a hidden dev trait. And he's got all B's showing here. This is a stud in the making. So McPherson, Nash, and then who was the left tackle? Banks? Yeah. So now what I need to do is back out, reload my save file, and then come right back into the save file and go target those guys with our scouting focus. Alright, so now we're back to where this is available again. We go... Oh wait, this is just to choose our national focus position. And we're going to make it strong safeties. That's his strength, and there were a couple that were available, as you could see. So let's go ahead and set that. Because with Kareem Jackson leaving, we have to get a strong safety. So that'll accomplish that goal, hopefully. Now, I'm going to have a hard time overlooking that middle linebacker. If he is there, holy smokes, do I want a guy like that, because that's the player that I like to control anyway, and if I can get a stud, I can make a huge impact on the game by just making plays with a guy that's flying all over the field with that kind of athleticism. We'll have to figure out what to do at strong safety if that's the case, but if I actually come in and look at my... Wait, who's coming back from injury? We'll look at that in a second. If I go and look at my roster, I think our backup strong safety is like a 70-ish, which isn't, it's not even what I would call good, but it's decent, and he's young. So maybe we just roll with him for a year and see how bad he is. But it'd be nice if we could get both. And if we have any luck, having set that scouting focus on strong safeties, we might be able to capture one in like the second round that's acceptable. He still probably won't be very polished, but maybe we get a guy that's really athletic and has a hidden dev trait. And if we can start him and he's only like a 71 overall anyway, he'll develop really fast and be better than the alternative. So we'll see. Long way between now and then. All right. We got somebody ready to negotiate here. So Fuller is gone. Jackson's gone. Reisner will be gone. Draymond Jones, he likes the bonus and the duration, just not the salary. That's fine. Here's what we're going to do. Just go like that. And as in exchange, we reduce the signing bonus. Boom. So that'll work. That's all we need to do this week for negotiations. Somebody was coming back from injury. I think it was Draymond Jones. We'll deal with that in a second, though. We only have 10 staff points. That's not going to be enough to do anything. We don't need to do anything as far as game planning. We're going to leave it on half pads and just keep the guys nice and fresh. Who's hurt here that isn't getting the stuff? Now, Brett Morris, I think, needs like 2 more reps to unlock his dev trait, which, man, we're kind of hoping for superstar, but I don't know exactly what to expect, frankly. Spencer Johnston still has a long way to go before he's got enough snaps to unlock his, but that's not a big deal. It really doesn't change anything. It's just that you don't know what it is until they get to that point. But they're still developing at the rate that they would if you did know what it was. So it's not a big deal. All right, Johnston. He gets one, and we are going to go run stopper. At defensive tackle, that's my priority. So, and then Surtain is turning into a stud. We're going to go slot. He's up to an 88 overall, and he's only 22 years old, y'all. Now, when we need to re-sign him after his rookie contract is expiring, he's going to cost us a fortune. But I think he will be a priority. You don't get players like that very often. You can't let him go. All right, Draymond Jones is back from injury. That's going to probably mess with my depth chart a little bit. So let's take a look here. All right, so he plugs back in as the starting left end. Right end should be Shelby Harris. Defensive tackle, it's Jones, Johnston, Purcell. Johnston is getting really close to overtaking DJ Jones as the better option here. But DJ Jones has been playing well. We're going to let him continue to hold that role. All right, let's go look at the pass rushing depth chart situation. So it's Jones at left end. Is it Harris over here? No, it's Chubb. Forgot about that. And then defensive tackle, that's right. Harris is second on that one, which is, you know what? Let's actually put Johnston there, and then we're going to put Harris second on the depth chart here. Yeah. All right. So that's done, and now I think we're ready to jump forward to week 9 against the Seahawks. Excuse me. So far this season is actually going pretty well. Morris has played exceptionally well for us so far, frankly. Ooh, we got a breakout player coming off of a bye week. What's that about? Kenny Young at middle linebacker. Now, we're going to be simming this game, so I can't control that. But I also don't really care that much about it. I mean, it'd be nice to have him get that, but he's not my long-term solution at middle linebacker. He's played well for us, but a lot of that is because we've controlled him. Days where we don't, he's not nearly as much of a factor usually in the stat sheet. All right, Mike Ford, 27 years old, normal dev trait, and he's only a 72. He's not going to get any better, and he's probably going to get worse. So I have no use for you in the future. He gone. Same thing with DJ Fluker. He was a stopgap option for us, basically just a Band-Aid to get us through this season. There is no way we're bringing him back. So he's gone. So that was pretty easy. Now we got to set our strategy against the Seahawks here, who are 3-5. I think we need to try and run the ball against this team. Yeah, we'll try and slow down Russell Wilson. I think that's a prudent decision. And then, yeah, let's run it inside. It might be hard because of Bobby Wagner, but I'd rather take my chances on the ground. Actually, you know what? Morris is playing well. Even though we kind of have to worry about Adams at safety, I think we're going to take our chances with continuing the aerial assault. Who is hurt? Is it Stevenson? Oh yeah, Stevenson's out for the year, and I can't change who we've got selected for the focus player. That stinks. Actually, let's allow less than 4 yards per carry. I think we can do that with the simulated game this week. Our run defense has been pretty good in games that we've simmed. So, who did we go and bring in to help with the injury situation? Was it McKissick? It was a receiving style of back. It was McKissick. Yeah. Because Cohen's out still, and then Stevenson is out for the year. So that kind of stinks. But we'll be okay. We've done well enough running it to just stay balanced and, occasionally set up play action. And that's pretty much all we're looking for out of our run game anymore. Although there are going to be some days where if we're struggling to pass it, we'll just run it instead and, take what the defense is giving you. You've got to be prepared to do that. As frustrating as it can be, you go into a game sometimes thinking like, dude, we're going to air it out, throw for 350 yards. And then it's just not there. Like, they're covering well. You don't get the looks that you're wanting for whatever reason. So you just kind of have to adjust. And you end up running for 150 yards instead. All right, so we're ready to go here, aren't we? Yeah. All right, let's see if we can get the win here and get to 6-2, basically at the halfway point for the season. It'd be nice because if we can, yeah, we got the win. That's big. We'll look at the box score in a second, but let's see if Kenny Young got his. No, he didn't get his breakout, but that's fine. Now we play the Jags. It's on the road. Oh, they're 6-3, so they're playing pretty well. Let's go in and look at the box score. And I'm pretty sure I haven't done the commentary or editing for the last episode yet, but as you can see here, we had it says we played this twice, and it's because the first time I played, I was at halftime before I realized that I wasn't recording, so I just started over, and then I did the opposite basically the second time I played it. But at that point, the game was over. I wasn't about to backtrack again. So we beat the Seahawks by a field goal, and we ran the ball okay. We threw for 321 yards. There were no turnovers on the day. We stopped their running game, as you can see, just 54 yards. Russell Wilson was 25 for 32, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, and sacked once. And then Morris basically went through with him punch for punch. 26 for 35, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and no sacks. He's a rock star right now. Cannot say enough about how well he's playing. Javonte Williams, a pretty good day. We shut down Chris Carson. He ended up with 2 touchdowns, but when you average 2.2 yards a carry, that's no bueno. McKissick, very little contribution in this one. Through the air, Campbell, 122 yards. Everett, 102. Jerry Jeudy, a nice day. Cortland Sutton, a nice day. Fant, 69 yards on 5 catches. Tim Patrick contributing. I like it. Alberto had a couple of catches. Ronald Jones, 2 touchdowns on 2 receptions. Where is McKissick? Just 1 reception for 3 yards. Would have liked to have seen him a little bit more involved, but hey, we won. That's all that matters. Defensively, Bobby Wagner had 11 tackles. Our leading tackle or leading tackler had 6. That's good. That means we had the ball a lot. Who had the sack? Bradley Chubb. And then there were no interceptions. Kicking, Blankenship missed one, and that was the difference. So that's interesting. And then Martin, decent day punting the football. How about 2 punts with an average of 66.5 yards, and both of them ended up inside the 20, which is pretty, pretty high likelihood when you kick it 65 yards. There's not a lot of places you can kick from where it doesn't end up inside the 20. And that's something that actually kind of frustrates me because, in real life, when you have a punter, most of the time the punts are around 50 yards or so. But every once in a while, they just get all of one. And it's like a good golfer, really squaring one up off the tee. Where if I play golf, a normal drive for me is probably about 260. If I really get a hold of one, it goes about 300 yards. You know what I mean? It's just like there's a big difference there. And it's the same way punting footballs. You don't see that dynamic when you play. It's only when you sim where you kind of see some of that happens. But whatever, not a big deal. I guess what I'm getting at is I wish there was a little bit more variability in how long a kick goes, regardless of whether or not you get it all the way to the end of the kick power meter or whatever. All right, so that's that. Now, the other thing that we want to look at on this, actually, here it is. We haven't been looking at these. So if we go here and go to draft, the nation's most dangerous prospect is Micah Good, a left guard with a background in wrestling and MMA. So who is it? Good left guard. This guy is kicked off the team. So he might have been a prospect, and he might still be a prospect, but a guy that we probably want to shy away from. So there's that. So Good at left guard. Pat Myers is a QB for Ole Miss that might be worth a sniff. And then Steve Winter has New Hampshire's defense on the map. So Winter at middle linebacker, Good left guard, and Myers at QB. Let's go put some hearts on those fellas. Yeah, Micah Good is the #1 overall prospect. That guy is going to be a gorilla. I mean, we'll put a heart on him, but there ain't no way we're getting him. I want to just look at him just to see A, B. I mean, this guy's going to be like an 80. Now, strength is a little bit of an issue, but if he's got phenomenal technique, which it looks like he's going to, that guy's going to be really good. All right. And then there was a QB, this guy. We're not going to get him, but let's look at him just out of curiosity. Ooh, I like seeing those A's. He's got speed, too. Oh, man, this guy's a stud. He's a stud. Holy crap, is he a stud. But we've got a stud. Brett Morris, even though he doesn't run quite as well as I would like, he's not terrible. Who was it here? Well, McPherson is a guy that we like. It was Winter. Where is he? Steve Winter. So he's projected to go in the 3rd or 4th round. We don't know anything about him. His physicals aren't the greatest. And he doesn't have very good awareness. I mean, he might be a steal at that point in the draft, but it doesn't look like he's a guy that we would try and take like in the first or second round. Maybe the third if we get lucky. But anyway. All right. We have 28 staff points to spend. And we're going to spend some of them. So let's go in and set the strategy for Jacksonville first. All right, so defend the outside run. James Robinson's a 90 overall. I'm not as worried about the run as I am about the pass. These guys throw it 60% of the time anyway. Let's try and get to Trevor Lawrence here. Some interceptions and such. Defensively, yes, we're going to stick with the blitz counter. Our offense has been clicking. Let's not do anything to mess it up. Brett Morris, you can see there, star dev trait. So it's not the superstar that we were hoping for, but he's still pretty darn good. But I'll tell you what, if we get into a position where an opportunity presents itself to go from him to a mobile QB that is a star dev trait or better, kind of thing, I would be open to that. Although it's not very realistic, and we want to try and keep things realistic, so maybe we would not be open to that. Let's go for sacks, I guess, in this one. We didn't get enough last week to keep me happy, so we're going to challenge the guys this week to go get a couple of sacks. Sacks can be drive killers, so it's nice to have a good, effective pass rush. It can bail out your secondary, for sure. A la the New York Giants the year they beat the Patriots. And the actually even better example was the year that the Panthers got beat by Denver, because Cam Newton was just shredding defenses until they ran into Denver, who just kept doing a four-man rush, dropping 7 into coverage, and they could not do anything against that defense. It was incredible. I mean, that was like Von Miller, and I can't remember who else they had, but they shut them down. And Cam Newton couldn't even run either. Like they just absolutely manhandled them. It was incredible. So now we don't necessarily have as much of that going on with a 3-4 defense, but we still have chances to do kind of stuff like that with Bradley Chubb coming off the edge, and All right, so we're ready to now just do the staff upgrade and then sim ahead to week 11. What we're going to do is sim until we lose, and then we'll look at the stats for the season. All right, so we're all the way down through this tree and this tree. Like these ones down at the bottom, I don't care that much about. And then we'll come back to the coordinators after we finish our way getting down here. So do we want to do these before we go down here? I don't think we do. I think we want these. I don't know why I started investing over here before we got farther down this tree, because I want the ability to trade and not feel like I'm losing in the deal. I want to trade and feel like we won that negotiation. And it's hard to do that without those perks in the development tree. So that's going to be the strategy for right now, and we are ready now to advance again. So let's see if we can take down Jacksonville. This game was on the road, wasn't it? And they're playing pretty well, so I'm not super confident going into this one, quite frankly. Well, how about that? 24-3, torched them. The defense obviously did it. Ooh. Look at this. Surtain is getting a breakout scenario, and he is already a superstar. We have to hold him to less than 100 passing yards. or get him 3 interceptions and whatnot. That is not going to happen. Or force 3+ turnovers. So if we get 3 turnovers as a team, that would work. Otherwise, he needs a combo of 3 interceptions, forced fumbles, tackles for a loss, or sacks. So that's going to be hard, but if we get it, he goes to an X factor. Oh, man. He's already high 80s, and he's only 22. Wait, what is this? Do we have another one? What in the world? Javonte Williams could get a breakout. So we want to try and get him 150 yards. That would be nice because he's still young. And that would set us up at running back for quite some time. All right. We got 2 players ready to negotiate. And now I have the ability to select some focus players. And I think I remember who we wanted to look at there. All right. Nate Hairston. Another situation at corner where you're just past the point where you're usable for me. So we're going to need to go and find some corners because we're letting a strong safety go, and then 2 more corners are going to be gone. So we've got to address that. That's no secret. Sam Martin, you're terrible. I can get punters are a dime a dozen. I can just go draft one. It's not a big deal. We'll draft a we'll draft a punter with our 7th round pick maybe, and just get whoever has the strongest leg. It's that simple. All right, so scouting focus player. There was a left tackle. What was it? Banks, I think. So let's go here. Chris Banks. There was a middle linebacker, McPherson. And there was a strong safety, Nash. Boom. Confirm it. Lock it in. All right, so that's done. Nothing else we need to do for scouting. We've got the 49ers this week. Are we at home? Nope, we're on the road again. But we're 7-2. Even if we lose, we are still very well positioned right now to make a playoff run. All right, they are pretty balanced offensively. Now, we want to defend the pass because this is the game where we need turnovers. And I think the best way to get them is interceptions. Now, here, we want to... Oh, gosh. They're good against the run, but not against the pass. As much as I want to get Javonte Williams that breakout scenario, I don't think this is the game to try and force the issue. So let's stick with the blitz counter. Let's go. Here we're going to try and get interceptions because that's a key. Let's win the turnover battle. Let's not have any turnovers. And let's get some sacks. Actually, let's pick it off twice. We're going all turnovers for our goals this week, pretty much. So we want to get 3 turnovers and not have any giveaways. We'll see how that goes. But, alright, so we got an upgrade here. Somebody's coming back from injury. I think it's Cohen from that collarbone. Wilkins, I'd like you to get better at pass protection a little bit. Albert O, stick with possession. So when you go possession, see he's a 59 on blocking. If I go with possession, he'll probably get some blocking upgrades as well. See, he got run block +1. He might go up. Yeah, he went up to a 60 anyway. So that's why, like, if you do possession, a lot of times you get some blocking upgrades as well, and it goes up along with possession. So I'm going to stick with that strategy going forward. We can purchase another staff upgrade. So far, this episode is going very well. When you can simulate and win, that is fantastic. All right, so this one, basically, any trade that you're making, the other team views the player that you are offering as having one higher dev trait than they actually do. So if they're normal, they are viewed as a star dev trait. If they are an X factor, it doesn't matter because you can't be higher than X factor. But still, that's a big advantage when you're going and trying to trade somebody, because the other team views them as having higher potential than what they really do, which is obviously to your advantage. So that's that. We need to look at the injury situation, and then we'll go look at the box score from that last game and see what went down. So Cohen, yeah, I think we stick with Cohen ahead of McKissick. Actually, you know what? In terms of running the ball, let's go with McKissick. He's got better carrying rating. So he's basically just the second option as our like main halfback. And then if I come up here to third down back, it's probably going to be, see, they've got McKissick there as well. He's just better. But you know what? Cohen's been doing a pretty good job for us. We're going to keep him in that role. And then this one, we have nobody who can run hard outside of Javonte Williams. I mean, that's embarrassing. It's okay, though. All right. Now, let's check out the box score. Actually, let's look to see if there's any draft news, just in case. Nope, nothing. So that's that. Now let's look at the box score from last week. So we've got now 4 straight victories. We didn't hold them to less than... Wait, no, that breakout scenario is for next week, not this week. But we shut them down offensively, period. We got a bunch of turnovers. We need to do that again this week. All right, Brett Morris was really sharp. He didn't end up with any touchdowns, and he was sacked 6 times. Holy crap. But we got 2 sacks and 3 interceptions against Trevor Lawrence, who ended up with a 19.7 QB rating. So that's pretty good. Javonte Williams, 3 touchdowns and 96 yards rushing. Robinson had a decent day. McKissick was okay. Jones, Sutton, TJ Patrick. No really big numbers there, but whatever. All right, let's get a look at the sacks. Who had them all? So Miles Jack, 10 tackles. Our leading tackler was Kyle Fuller with 6. Okay. Let's see. They had 1.5 for Smoot and Hamilton. 1 for Allen. Spencer Johnston got him a sack. Kaizen and Derek Barnett playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Is that who he's with in real life now? And then Jones and Kenny Young combined for a sack. But there you see, when I'm not playing with Kenny Young, he gets 3 tackles. Now, some of that was we had the ball the entire game, but still, there's no question that his success is mostly tied to me controlling him. That's why I like to have a good middle linebackers, because I can make them better. I've always thought about trying to take a safety. In fact, I used to use a safety. I would get a lot of interceptions that way. But it's just, to me, it's not as action-packed, I guess, because you have a lot of plays where you're just not involved. All right. We are ready to advance, aren't we? Yes. So 7-2, going to the Bay Area to take on the Niners, who are 6-4. We've got a couple of breakout scenarios that are up for grabs here, and we lost 20-17, unfortunately, which does not bode well for our breakout scenarios. Yeah. So Surtain doesn't get one. And then Javonte Williams, I'm sure, unless he ran for 150 yards, but he obviously did not have 3 touchdowns. Oh, he got it. So he's up to a superstar. That is freaking awesome. So we'll look at how he got that, because he didn't get the 3 touchdowns. We only had 17 points. What is this crap about? Jeez. Whatever. All right. We don't need to do any scouting. Let's just go look at the stats, because in the next episode, we'll go through the strategy and stuff for the upcoming game. So we lost 20-17. That's a tough one. We only rushed for 111 yards. So I think they screwed up that dev trait situation, but I'm not going to complain. Let's see here. Lance was okay. He ended up 17 for 28, 192 yards, a touchdown, and sacked once. Morris was 19 of 34, which isn't the greatest as far as completion percentage, but it's not terrible. 222 yards and a touchdown, sacked 3 times. So we've been giving up too many sacks these last couple of weeks, but he continues to play well. Williams, 84 yards and a touchdown. So I'm not sure why, unless he got 150 yards total. So what does that mean? He needs 66 yards receiving. We'll see if he got that. Mitchell, 70 yards on 19 carries. Cohen, not much of a factor. McKissick, not much of a factor. Sutton had 92 and a touchdown. Judy, 86. James Washington, Deebo Samuel. Kind of kept him in check. We kind of kept Kittle in check, but he got the touchdown. Noah Fant didn't do much. Yeah, I don't even see Javonte Williams. So they screwed that up to our advantage. So that's cool. Kenny Young had 11 tackles, so that's a good day for him. Who was their leading tackler? A rookie defensive tackle. 7 tackles, 1 for a loss, and a half of a sack, so he must be pretty darn good. Bradley Chubb had another sack. Armstead got one. Maurice Hurst, former Raider, didn't have to go far to his next destination. Frank Charlton, you saw, had a half of one, and then Jimmy Ward. There were no interceptions, weren't there? Okay. Elliott, 2 for 3. McManus, 1 for 2. So he missed one, and that cost us the game, basically. Or at least a shot at overtime. Wisnowski, 4 punts, an average of 56.8. And then Martin, 4 punts with an average of 41.8. And we don't care about return yardage. So it's a loss. We're still in pretty good shape, though, for the season. What are we, 7-3 now? 10 games in. But we got another tough one coming up here with the Colts coming to Denver. The Chiefs now have the lead in the division. They're 8-3. But we've got Colts and then Chargers, then Rams, and then that game against the Chiefs could end up being a really big one. So ideally what we would have happen here, in terms of how I kind of want to see the season play out, if we could get 2 wins in a row here and then have that bye week against the Rams, if we lose, we at least get to play that game against the Chiefs, which would be a big one. If we sim and beat the Rams, we would still sim that game against the Chiefs, and I'll bet you we would lose. Although it's at home, so you never know. But that's just kind of what I anticipate there. Now, the last thing we are going to do before we wrap up the episode is look at some stats. Next episode, we will start by setting our strategy and everything, and then play in the games against the Colts and the Chargers. But let's go look at stats to this point in the year through 10 games. We're basically over halfway. And we're going to just look at individual stats first because Brett Morris, look at the numbers he's putting up. The yards per game are a little bit light, but that's not that bad. And realistically, only having 4 interceptions through 10 games is outstanding. He's on pace to end up with like 8 for the year, which is really good for a rookie, especially if you throw 30 touchdown passes or whatever he ends up with. Now, he's been sacked 16 times, which is actually very good through 10 games. However, like 9 of those were in the last 2 games. So that's becoming an issue, at least recently, but still completing 60%, 67% of his passes, and a QB rating of 106.3 as a rookie. That is just absolutely earth-shattering. Now, Javonte Williams is now on pace for a really good season. He's got 831 yards on the ground and 9 touchdowns. He's averaging almost 5 yards a carry, which is about where we want it. Cohen is doing a pretty good job in relief there at 6 yards a carry. Stevenson gone for the year, but he was having a pretty good season for us, although he fumbled once, which kind of irks me a little bit. Morris is actually doing okay handling the football on the ground. Those 4 fumbles happened kind of early in the season for the most part. He's gotten that in check a little bit. I'd like to see that number stay about where it is for the year. But he's been better at getting out of the pocket and using his legs and throwing on the run than I expected him to be, which has been a pleasant surprise. So that's that. And receiving, Sutton and Judy with very similar numbers as far as catches and yards, but Sutton's got 8 TDs to Judy's 5. Noah Fant having a pretty decent season. I'd like to see him get more involved a little bit, so we'll see if we can maybe work on that down the stretch. Tim Patrick has not really been much of a factor this year, and a lot of that is we're using Judy a lot more, and Tim Patrick ends up basically he's not playing when we're 2 wide, and then when we're 3 wide, Judy goes to the slot, and I like throwing to the slot receiver, so he just doesn't get a lot of targets. Williams has been an okay asset in the passing game. This is actually disappointing. Cohen only 12 catches and 81 yards. I'd like to see that come up quite a lot, and it's just, it is what it is. Albert O, I'd like to get him a little bit more involved as well. But again, when you've got really good playmakers on the outside, if they're putting up numbers, everything else, like you can't expect everybody to have awesome seasons. So if you've got a couple of guys that these two being as balanced as they are tells me that defenses are going to have a hard time defending this team because who do you pay attention to? And if you pay attention to these two, then Noah Fant becomes a weapon because he's likely to get the one-on-one coverage, and with his size and playmaking ability, that's a dangerous weapon. All right, defensively, Kenny Young, the leading tackler with 86. He's got 12 tackles for a loss, which is pretty good. Sacks is probably Bradley Chubb. No, DJ Jones coming up the middle. So we don't have any serious sack threats, unfortunately. Nobody is out there racking up a sack a game. Not even a half a sack a game right now. So that's kind of a concern. But I feel like we're getting a bunch of interceptions. Surtain's got 4, Fuller 3, Jackson and Simmons each with 2. So those are actually pretty good numbers, quite frankly. I'd like to see linebackers coming away with some interceptions, but the defense is doing a pretty good job. Brandon McManus has been pretty good for us, 15 of 17. perfect on extra points. He had 1 field goal blocked. Obviously, that was during one of our simulations, because those don't happen in games that you play. And then Sam Martin, 26 punts, a net average of 43.5 yards, 9 inside the 20, 2 go for touchbacks. So that's the individual stats, and then we're going to look at team rankings just out of curiosity. Now keep in mind, some teams have not had a bye week yet, and that will influence some of the overall yardage or whatever. But when we look at offensive yards gained, where are my Broncos? Holy moly. We're way toward the bottom. Which, again, a lot of the teams in front of us maybe have played an extra game, but I'd still like to be at the middle of the pack. And we're pretty well balanced, which is good. Now, here's the flip side of it. When we look at points per game, we're 6th in the league. So even though we're not getting a ton of yards, we are obviously doing a good job giving ourselves pretty good field position and putting up a bunch of points. So that's key. As far as first downs, I would like to be a lot higher on this list as well, but we're doing okay. All right, so defensively, I'll bet you we're doing pretty well here. For the total, actually, it's not as good as I would have thought. Dang, we're middle of the pack and toward the bottom of the middle of the pack, if anything. Why are we not doing very well there? We're giving up a lot of pass yards, which is, that's not the end of the world. We're doing very well against the run. And, I bet you some of that is if you're winning games, teams are trying to throw it to get back into the game, and you're going to do okay. Points against, we are towards the top. I would say maybe we're in the second, third of the league, so we're probably like 12th or whatever out of 32 teams, which isn't that bad though. So we're doing okay there. Sacks, we have 22, which is actually better than I would have thought league-wide. But we don't have like one person racking up a bunch of them. It's a team effort that's got us to that point. I don't care too much about fumbles, but then interceptions, where are we? We are, what is that, 4th in the league with 11, which is very good. So we're doing a good job getting turnovers. Let's look at third down percentage here. Where are we? In the middle of the pack at 50%. We're going for it on 4th down, 3 out of 6, 50%, not a huge deal. Red zone efficiency, we are 2nd in the league at 77%. And we've only had 1 trip to the red zone where we did not get some points. That is fantastic. We're 35 for 36 getting points in those trips, and we're 2nd best at getting touchdowns on those trips. That's awesome. And then defensively, let's look at this one. So we want this percentage to be low, and it's fairly low. 37 trips, 32 times teams have scored, but only 21 have been touchdowns, and that's a good number. You want to have that down around that 60% mark or better, and we have accomplished that. So that's good. As always, we lead the league in penalties. Turnovers. Turnover differential, we are +8. That is fantastic. Giveaways. Let's see here. We're tied for third. The Texans, 2 interceptions, no fumbles. That's pretty ridiculous for a team that's 1-10. Jeez, but they're just not getting any takeaways. So let's look at takeaways and how are we doing here? Actually 4th place all by ourselves. So, doing a very good job, kind of balanced as far as the overall numbers, and that's a good thing. We're not one-dimensional. Um, we're throwing it okay, we're running it okay, we're taking care of the football, we're getting some turnovers, we're getting some sacks, and I don't feel like there's any one player on this team that if they got hurt, our season would be over, with maybe the exception of Brett Morris, because Drew Lock is our backup. He's just not very good. We would have to go get a free agent. We would probably let Drew Lock play, but go get somebody as a third string option until Morris got healthy. Let's just, cross our fingers that that doesn't happen. But if this team stays healthy, we're going to make the playoffs, and we have a shot at making a run in the playoffs, especially if we can manage to get that bye. And that actually reminds me, let's look at the standings around the league and see. So the Ravens are 10-1. They're going to be tough to catch to get that first round bye. But we're right there with the Chiefs, Steelers. Anybody else with 3 losses? No. So it's still up for grabs a little bit, but Baltimore's going to have to come back to the field a little bit to give us a chance. So that is going to do it for this episode. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment below, and we will see y'all next time.
Good evening, friends and neighbors. Or shall I say this afternoon?